Blog Talk Radio.
Following ingredients include a look behind the scenes. Cook uncovered until hot. Add grooves to taste.
I would like, if I may, to take you on a strange journey.
Once upon a time, there was a little girl.
The accident was over a year ago. A second woman has been elected president. A 12th planet has been named in the solar system. The last wild polar bear has died. I slept through it all. I was here for my waking. He called it a beginning. He said it was good. I think he may have thought that anything I did was good.
Welcome to Transition Radio, live from Hollywood, Florida, with your host and hostess, Mark Angelo and Jessica Lynn Cummings. Show for trans folks by trans folks, here to let your voice be heard.
No, actually now is when... All right, this is crazy. All right, I don't know if you guys heard anything, but now is when we realized that the actual microphone was not on, and it's on now. I tell you, lately we've been having a lot of technical difficulties.
I don't know what it is.
I don't know.
It's got to be a shift in the earth or something.
Something.
Not allowing technology to be so cumbersome anymore.
Yes, I know, but it's crazy. Anyway, as we were, I guess you have to thank the sponsor again.
Yes, so I'm going to do that again, just in case. We want to thank our sponsor, thepressformstore.com. They have everything you need for your cross-dressing and transgender needs. Visit their website. Until then, Transition Radio. Thank you.
Well, we were supposed to have Aiden Willows on the show, but he has not called. I've left him several messages on his Facebook timeline and also on his phone. Well, timeline is what it is. Oh, here, I'm so sorry. I was in the other room. Chaos in the house today, I swear. Yeah, a lot of chaos. He said, just send us a message. So tell him to call in the show because the show is on and...
live and waiting,
as usual. I guess while we wait, the number to call in is 646-716-6895.
6895. And then it's going now.
Yeah, he should have it on his timeline, which I posted, and on the other emails that I've sent him. But I don't know if we should read the little announcement we had in the...
Yeah, go ahead. And let's go to the announcement first, and then we'll come back and once we see him in queue, we'll go from there.
Boy or girl, gender, new challenges for school. From the time they are born, we put our boys in blue beanies and our girls in pink ones. It is a societal norm, an expectation even that just you are what you're born, a boy or a girl. From early on, we divide toys and activities by very distinct gender lines, with superheroes and trucks amongst one side by the other, and princes and dolls and all the little things in the other.
Many children land enthusiastically on the expected side. Others dabble in both girl and boy things. But what if your kid, even from an early age, mostly showed interest in doing opposite gender things? More importantly, what if they wanted to be the opposite gender, or a less defined mix of both? And what if they wanted to test those limits in public places, like school, for instance? Would you let them? It's not, of course, that part of a process. Parents don't just decide to let their kids switch genders, but whether parents are dragged through the process or if they decide to work it through more openly. More kids are challenging the boundaries of traditional gender and going public at younger ages.
And they are doing so with the guidance of a growing faction of medical experts who no longer see this as something to be fixed. Last year, the American Psychiatric Association removed gender identity disorder from its list of mental health ailments. Some experts predict that views on gender will evolve in much the same way they have for sexual orientation, since homosexuality was removed as a mental illness nearly 4 decades ago. Today, the gender spectrum includes those who are transgender, who see themselves as the opposite gender, and those who are gender variant or gender nonconforming, whose gender is more fluid. For kids, it means they identify part of themselves as a boy and part as a girl. And we actually have, should we take the call?
Good, and we'll bring Aiden in.
Bring him back.
Now, these kids are beginning to have a voice, and I think that's what's been making things interesting and challenging and difficult, sometimes depending on the family, the kid, or the school, says Dr. Robert Garofalo, Director of the Center for Gender, Sexuality, and HIV Prevention at Lurie Children's Hospital of Chicago. While the numbers are relatively small, it means that increasingly schools are having to figure out how to accommodate them, some more successfully than others. The Center of Lurie opened recently in part to meet the demand from parents seeking guidance for children who are questioning their gender identity and to provide support to older transgender youth who sometimes struggle more in adolescence, even facing a greater suicide risk, especially if they have no backing from family and others around them. The center also serves as a resource for schools with transgender and gender variant students. Increasingly, those students are making the transition as early as elementary school, if not before. Okay, we did have Aiden on the line. But we're going to start the show, so
go back to the beginning so we can go over his bio.
And then when he calls back in, we will bring him out.
All right, so we have Aiden Willow. He's a 28-year-old trans man and artist living in Minnesota with his fiancée, future stepson, an apartment full of animals.
Aiden was aware he was different from a young age and was openly a lesbian at 18, but still felt it wasn't completely him. A few years later, he came across the term genderqueer and identified with it immediately.
Soon after, he began to realize he wasn't just genderqueer, but actually transgender. He came to terms with it, but when he first told someone, he was told he was simply doing it for attention and pushed the feeling aside for a while. Years later, the feelings were still there, and he decided it was time to start changing things in his life, begin to transition and be the man he felt he has always been.
Art has always been a large part of his life. Aiden found that art was a great way of dealing with his emotions and mental illness. At a young age, Aiden was diagnosed with bipolar disorder, borderline personality disorder, generalized anxiety disorder, depression, and has faced chemical dependency issues over the years in a way of self-medicating his pain and confusion of who he was. But even though there are mental illnesses present in his day-to-day life, he's always trying to keep life positive and enjoy each day as best as he can. Now, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our show that has been nothing but technical difficulty, Mr. Aiden Willows. Hey.
Hey. Having technical difficulties over here.
Yeah. I guess it must be that asteroid that's coming near Earth. I think it's supposed to pass us by tonight around 9:45 p.m. So we're probably getting the remnants of it, and everything's just going haywire. So how you been?
I am doing good, actually. Pretty good these days, so can't complain.
That's good. Hope you're not nervous. You're just talking amongst friends, and those that are listening are also friends. We got a lot of supporters and people that really appreciate the show. We appreciate the guests that come on the show because every story has something very special to bring forward to humanity. And you are part of that someone special. Now,
which is always, it's great you guys have this, by the way. It's great.
Thank you. Sometimes we don't feel like we have a lot of support, and there are times we just want to throw in the towel because it's a lot of hard work with very little compensation, if any, and it's caused us a lot of problems, people's envy and all that stuff. So we're hanging in there, but to tell you the truth, it's sometimes it's just hard to start with the Q&A since we started the show kind of late with all the technical stuff that was going on. What does the word genderqueer mean to you? And explain to our listeners why you identify with this label at first.
Well, basically, when I came across it, it was a term in a documentary I had seen. And basically, the way they were explaining it is more that people kind of, in the genderqueer category, I guess you could say, are people that kind of identify with both, but not necessarily one in particular. And at the time, I was kind of feeling that way. It was, I mean, I have still my my feminine moments. I don't ever try to, fight those anymore, and I did for a while, but, I kind of took that in a different way at the time, and now I've just learned that, I'm definitely a guy, but at the time it was more of like finding my way to the transgender thing, like the term, and actually accepting it in baby steps was more of what it was, I think.
And there's absolutely nothing wrong with allowing oneself to feel both energies, because if you notice, everything in life has two sides. Everything. Everything you look at, it has a duality. And I think humanity has created a neurosis, and they're all messed up because we're constantly trying to put ourselves in a box, either be really masculine or be really feminine. And we are both, and it's okay to be both. And I think being transgender is almost like the gateway of allowing humanity to realize, hey, there is something else than just male or female. And that's us.
So does that mean, since I look like a woman, I can still put my foot in someone's butt?
Yeah, of course. All of that.
Bend over, baby.
Yep.
Do you feel there is much difference between both the labels?
I mean, to a degree, it's more, there are a lot of people I know that are transitioning but still identify as genderqueer. I think it's more of how you yourself feel internally, because, there are a lot of people that identify as gay, but, it's different for them. And some people identify as bisexual. It's in that way, it's kind of a similar thing, but at the same time, with your gender, it's so fluid, sometimes it's hard to put a label on it for a lot of people. So.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what steps did you first take to feel aligned?
Oh, well, I was already in therapy, so that was a bonus. But basically, I had started talking to my therapist about it, and I had a lot of questions, and I happen to have a friend who is also male to female, and then I have a friend that's female to male. So I was able to kind of talk to both of them on their aspects of where it's coming from, and then being able to talk to another person who was female to male was really helpful. And they gave me some advice of the doctors I need to get a hold of, because when it comes to looking stuff up online, I tend to, as mentioned in the bio, I have a little bit of an anxiety issue, so I get overwhelmed really fast with that kind of information. So it was nice to have someone to actually talk to in person that actually knows about the situation themselves, which was really handy. But after that, I started seeing an endocrinologist, and I had to wait for about 2 years for my cholesterol to work out because it was really high, and just kind of went from there and started on testosterone, and everything's slowly happening.
It's your speed, nobody else's.
Exactly. How do you feel thus far?
Oh, good. Very good. I'm beginning to feel more and more comfortable. And I never thought that I would say that, to be honest.
I know the feeling. Trust me. Let me ask you, can you share with our listeners what sort of mental illnesses that you were labeled with?
Well, at a young age, my family knew that I had depression issues. I had a lot of situations in my life that led me to be a lot more depressed than your average person would in certain situations. So we kind of noticed, and my dad put me in therapy, and it kind of just went from there. And as I was in therapy, we learned more and more about some of the things that I have as far as the bipolar disorder and the borderline. Those are ones that I was a little scared of when someone brought those up and even mentioned that it was something that I could have. And, I mean, at first the thought of labels, you know, in general, I don't like them, but it helps give me a way of knowing what I have to deal with mentally and give me different options of things that I can, you know, help fix it with. I mean, there's the therapist and medication and everything like that helps, and the anxiety and the OCD are the main things that I face day to day now. So,
well, let me ask you: has any of these illnesses gotten any better since you started transitioning? Obviously, the OCD, that's not really, I wouldn't consider that an illness. I consider that just being more of a... But, I mean, have you noticed any of these things get better after you started your transition and started to fall into who you were?
Yeah, actually, in the beginning, the depression was really hard to deal with because, as most people know that are transgender, there is that dysphoria issue. So depression gets tied in with that. And I already had depression, but as I started to realize more and more that these things were things that I could change, everything kind of fell into place a little bit. And after starting testosterone for maybe a couple of months, I started to notice my depression started to decline a little bit more. And my medication, I got downed on my antidepressants, and I generally feel better. It's weird. I never thought that would happen just from testosterone. You know, it's crazy.
Yeah, I know what you mean. And I had a lot of anxiety. So I basically, you know, after I started my transition, my anxiety started going away, and I haven't had many problems with that.
Okay, I'm a medical professional, and I see that the medical community loves to put labels so they can give us pills. I mean, that's one of my takes on it. And I also believe that, you know, we're taught that we're supposed to be happy all the time, that everything is supposed to be great. And if you look at the ocean, there are days that it's calm, and there are days that it's very rough. You look at the weather, some days it's very beautiful and sunny, and other days it's very rainy and thundery. I think it's part of being in this reality that we're living in. And I tend to believe that it's more of a gift, being the way that we are, than it is an actual illness. And being different is okay. And we've been taught that no, being different is not okay. What is your take on this?
That's in a lot of ways very, very true. I did notice that at a very young age. They were trying to push the meds on me when I was in 8th grade. I mean, I would just turn 13, and I kept saying no. My dad said maybe, and I told him no. And it took me until I was 21 and having thoughts of, like, you know, really, really bad things of hurting myself. And I started to realize that maybe, you know, even if it's temporary, it could help, you know. And I kind of just, you know, said maybe I can try it. And, you know, honestly, it's not my first choice. But I know that when I don't have my meds, I'm a little bit different, and it's not always in a good way. So as far as the depression stuff, I totally agree with you because, you know, life day to day is not supposed to be happy all the time. If it was, then, you know, you don't have those down days that make those good days so much brighter. So it's a complicated thing in a lot of ways for a lot of people, depending on the mental illnesses. For me, you know, if it wasn't for the medication for my mood stabilizer especially, I mean, I am the most I'm horrible. I have, like, no ambition for anything, and at least with that, it helps, you know, kind of calm out my manic days that I have, and then I don't sleep for 3 days afterwards. So it does help. But
you know what I find?
I still have to work on it.
What I find, though, is that what we put in our body, the foods that we ingest, how much water we drank. All these things have major effect on our moods and on our conditions.
Very, very true.
Experimented dramatically with raw veganism. I've taken away all these products that have actually a lot of chemicals in them, which actually exacerbate the condition, and I find that it helps greatly. Because I could suffer from depression really bad. I could be very manic. It's in my family, and I've noticed by staying away from certain things, it helps. The only thing that I've not been able to help myself with is OCD, because I'm excessively clean. It's something that I cannot.
Yeah, he is so OCD that it's actually pronounced CDO, because he had to put him in alphabetical order.
But I believe it's not such a bad thing. I'd rather be organized than disorganized. And
very true.
So tell us about your art and your passion.
Well, the art thing has pretty much been there since day one. And I was one of those kids who was always coloring in their coloring books or drawing pictures. And I would much rather do that than, go climbing around in trees, which I did also. But it was more of, I liked coloring, I liked drawing, and it just kept blossoming as I got older. And my dad is also an artist, so he, gave me the tools that I needed to continue with my artwork. He would buy me the art supplies I wanted and needed, and even all through high school, it was basically the same thing. I mean, I used art in every way possible to help. In a lot of ways, it did help with, depression. And, some people have their outlets. Some people work out when they're depressed, or some people, do all kinds of things. But for some reason, art was always the thing I fell back on. And I've loved art as long as I can remember, and I just kind of started using my artwork as not just an outlet, but I've noticed that a lot of people, they like my art, they appreciate my art. So I decided that, why not, go further with my artwork. And I do pieces for people for their tattoos. I do random paintings for people's houses, and it's fun. Each piece is unique, and the people you work with is unique, and it can actually be very interesting with, my friends. Some of the people that I've done custom pieces for are, you learn things about them, and it's pretty cool. It's a unique experience, I think.
I think, as you mentioned earlier, when you are involved in your art, you don't feel as depressed. I think depression stems from pent-up energy of not being able to be as creative as one could be, being in boring, mundane jobs, 9 to 5, doing things that we don't want to do, instead of working in our craft, doing what we love to do, which will probably get rid of depression altogether in 99% of the population. But because we have some things we don't want to do, then what happens? That energy gets pent up, and that pent-up energy turns into disease. That's my opinion.
Yeah, definitely. I know exactly what you mean. That's something that I have noticed when I'm not using my creativity, when I'm not, writing, or if I'm not, journaling like I do, and, drawing, and just random little things that aren't even that creative to some people, but it's a creativity. And without doing those things on a regular basis, I can tell the difference when it comes to my depression and just in general my outlook on the world. When I draw more, I feel like I've accomplished something, even if it's, not something someone's going to buy. It kind of uplifts me a little bit. Art has a different impact on everybody, but for me, it's a very positive thing.
Well, tell where the listeners could get a hold of you and where they could buy your art or see your art.
I do actually have a page on Facebook, and you guys you do have a link listed, right? That's what you had on
they
there.
could go on the blog.
Okay.
And
Jessica, I thought so. Okay. Yeah, I do have a Facebook page where I have some things posted, but right now I'm in the process of uploading more of the more recent work and the custom pieces that I've done. And basically, I do stuff that is unique. I don't know how else to explain it, but it's people are more than welcome to come, look at it, and I love, feedback from anybody, questions, comments. It helps me kind of grow and figure out what people like and stuff like that, and I like being able to branch out on things, so if people ever have requests and stuff, it gives me a chance to kind of try something new, and that's fun for me. So, and then my blog, of course, I do try to write in there as much as possible. I'm keeping track of my transition. I'm keeping track of the random things that are going on in my regular life as far as just the depression and family, friends, just basically a normal blog, but I do try to, keep a lot of stuff in there about the transition and, how it's affecting my day-to-day life. So.
Well, it's been a pleasure to have you on the show, even though the show started...
it started off Rocky Brush, and
then you didn't call in. I'm like, oh, my God, he forgot. He either got cold feet.
Yeah, I know. So fun.
Pouring down rain here where we're at now, so I'm like, okay, now the electricity is gonna turn off or something,
The mind is very powerful.
Anyway, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure having you on the show, and good luck with everything you do. And
thank you guys also.
And keep on being
Definitely.
positive. And remember, enjoy the bad days too, because there's it's part of being in this duality. That's one thing I've learned.
Exactly.
So,
Yep. And I know it could be worse.
Yes, it always could be worse. That's for sure.
Very
well,
true.
Thank you.
Very true.
And, much love to your lovely wife, I guess. You guys married? Or?
Fiance, but we're getting there. We're getting there.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, you're married.
Yeah. And,
that's what everybody
your
says.
house will look back. All right, we want to thank our listeners again for tuning in. Remember, we won't have a show this Sunday. The show is now on Thursdays at 9 p.m. starting June 6th with Jody Rose, a very interesting man with a story that is going to move you, and also some great opportunities how to get some discounts on your surgery. So that's on the 6th at 9 p.m., June 6th. All right, guys, remember that we love you. But remember to always love yourself, too. Love yourself, love too. Yeah, something like that.
Did I get your time?
Yeah. All right. Good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody.
Thank you. And here we go. 2 steps. Boom.